Hello and welcome to another edition of Convict Inc. I'm your host, Robert Rasa. If you have not subscribed to this channel, please do so. If you like this video, please push like and share it with your family, friends, neighbors, enemies, and all my enemies out there who can't help but watch. Convict Inc. is about informing, entertaining, enlightening, and educating. And of course, helping all the good guys. Okay, so this is about a guy by the name of Tall Paul. Tall Paul was a terrible case, which was rape of a child. And Tall Paul happened to be my Celly for a moment in time. Before I get there, let me give a backstory. In 2007, I was transferred from the United States Penitentiary in Lewisburg, Pennsylvania, to the Federal Correctional Complex in Butner, North Carolina. Within the Federal Correctional Complex, there's 5 facilities, including the FMC, the camp, the LO, the FCI-1 and FCI-2. Around 2005, I believe, then Attorney General of the United States, Alberto Gonzales, made an announcement and designated the Butner complex as a sex offender facility. What that actually meant was they have a bunch of sex offender programs down there, but the whole complex is what is called administrative. Administrative means that people can be on that within that complex for any reason, whether it's medical, which a lot of us were down there for, sex offenses, gang dropouts, protective custody cases. The feds don't have like a PC per se yards, but they have administrative yards and also yards called 80/20s. That's 80% sex offenders and or PC cases on the in prisons with guys that are 20% good. Some of the other administrative facilities within the Bureau of Prisons would be Coleman 2, USP Terre Haute, which has a lot of the transgenders going through sex changes and hormone therapies, and Otisville, I believe, is one, and of course, Terminal Island. Anyway, that's one of many sex offenders. The new sex offenders in the federal prison are the new crack offenders. That means that they're filling up these prisons with sex offenders, predominantly people that download child porn, akin to the drug laws back in the day that were designed to get the big fish, but really just got a bunch of poor, predominantly black crack dealers. That's what's kind of going on with the sex offender stuff in the Federal Bureau of Prisons. They're getting the guys who download. And believe it or not, statistically, a lot of those guys would never go on to harm or use hands-on offenses. I was surprised when I saw that stat myself. Moving forward, in 2007, I was sent originally to FMC Butner, where I went there for 10 months for cancer treatments and ultimately was expelled from that institution because staff believe I was having inappropriate relationship with the female worker. I was then sent to Butner FCI-1, home of Carmine Persico. Bernie would come later. Jonathan Pollard, the Israeli spy. Who else was down there that was big at the time? Well, you can throw Joey Testa in there, although that wouldn't be like one of the bigger names. I was originally signed to Georgia Tech. Georgia Tech, they called a little pen. A lot of fights in there. You know, and I'm going to say this about Butner 1. Probably seen more fights in Butner 1 than any prison in my life. Dudes, I've seen some dudes get really punished at that prison. But a lot of guys got away with fights. And one of the reasons is there's no cameras in that prison, or there wasn't back then. And a lot of the guards down there, a lot of them were black. A lot of them from those neighborhoods where a lot of the guys in the joint were from. And they were cool and kind of turned their head on stuff. That's the truth. Anyway, I was having a really hard time adjusting in Butner 1 when I first got there. Now, don't get me wrong. That place is sweet. I don't give a damn if it's gang dropouts, protective custody cases, the worst of the worst as far as in the prison realm. There is a handful of good guys, 20 good guys to 50 good guys. Good meaning didn't snitch, aren't sex offenders, blah, blah, blah. And those guys remain to ourselves pretty much. I had a hard time living, not around the gang dropouts. I was actually a gang member, although I had pretty much had it set in my head that I was pretty much out of that. I knew that I'd be stuck in an administrative place probably indefinitely because bladder cancer is reoccurring. and mine had reoccurred probably like 6 times by then. So usually in an administrative facility, there's not a lot of gang activity, so I didn't have to drop out. I kind of like faded away, whatever. But I was having a hard time around guys that were law enforcement, specifically David Mack, former disgraced LAPD officer who ultimately became a good friend of mine. Sex offenders, of course, a lot of guys, you can just look at them and see that they're, no child molesters, and other people. So I was originally, the first day I got to Butner, I was put in the cell with the guy, what did I just say his name was? Cheney. And this guy was a sex offender. I think he molested his kid or fondled a grandkid, something. But I had to spend the night in there. And, I could have refused the compound and went into the hole. And I know a lot of guys here will say, well, that's what I would have done. I get it. Okay. So anyway, Joey Testa was the first one that like sat me down and said, look, this is their camp. This is their house. We're here. We can make our own little thing, but this is, you got to realize you're going to get these cellies. You don't have to stay, or if you have your own cell, you can move them out, blah, blah, blah. I stayed there 3 nights with this guy, or 2 nights, and I completely abused him. He didn't sleep whatsoever, and would go cry to Joey Testa every day. Joey would come and talk to me. And then I started kind of watching Joey Testa, who was the sex offender barber. The sex offenders were not allowed to go into the gym like normal people and get their hair cut because the barbers wouldn't do it in most cases. So Joey Testa became the actual sex offender barber. Over time, I started not looking at these sex offender dudes just like hating on them, So before I was like, I just couldn't stand them being near. So when they would come to talk to Joey all the time, Carmine didn't like it, Persico a lot. But Joey, Joey was like the mayor. Joey is friendly and talks to everybody and doesn't care who you are. That's how he judges people. A lot of conversations with Joey about living around those people. And it took me about 9 months. After about 9 months, it's like they didn't even matter. And as a matter of fact, one of Joey's customers, when he cut hair, was a guy by the name of Patrick Kajawa, Father Patrick Kajawa. His major was English. And he actually corrected some of my earliest writings for websites. That's a true fact. Joey hooked me up with them. And I ended up talking to Patrick Kajawa after a while. Now, there's a big turnover rate at Butner FCI 1. That means you're constantly getting new cellies. I think the average stay in that prison was something like 18 months total, which isn't shit. But what this means for guys who are going to be there a while, like Carmine Persico and myself, Joey got transferred, Daniel Castelli, aka Kazi out of Philly, is that you have to always be on the lookout for your next celly, a good guy. So it goes from a guy that didn't tell, a guy didn't do this, to I don't care about snitches or law enforcement or whatever, just don't give me a sex offender. That's kind of your mentality after a while, because it's slim pickings. There came a day when my cell came open and I knew I was going to get a celly. Now, there are times when you can go to the counselor first and say, hey, I had arrangement to have so-and-so moved into my cell, blah, 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 and all that good stuff. Or there's times the counselors just wouldn't care. They were kind of lazy, didn't really care. And then some days they would do their job. So one day I'm sitting at the table with Carmine, and Carmine's like, what are you going to do? What's up, bro? What are you going to do about this? You're selling you. You're going to get one of these guys, sex offender, if you don't watch out. About a week earlier, there was a group of guys that came in, and there was a big, tall, white guy. His name was Paul. He had a moon. His face was literally shaped as a half moon. Biggest face I've ever seen. He kind of had that little bit of frozen face, and what I mean by frozen face is that I learned either from a psychologist at Butner or Dr. Drew on the Love Line that there exists these people when they get molested as children that their face kind of freezes. And you guys may have seen the man boy sex offenders. They're older, but they have this little boy face. That's the frozen face. Paul had that a little bit. So I went up to him and I said, hey, what's up? What are you in here for? I'm in here for a gun charge. I got all my paperwork. Really? Where'd you come from? Cumberland, Maryland. I got transferred because I got into an argument, blah, 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 whatever. I got my paperwork. I'm like, okay. So you're not a sex offender? Fuck no, I'm not a sex. Okay, all right. You want to move in with me? Hell yeah. I told him, I got life. I've had my PSI the whole time. People don't get those anymore. Precedence investigation report. That tells everything about you. So Paul moved in. Now, When Paul arrived at Butner, he had about 9 months left on his criminal sentence. When he arrived at that time, I wasn't hip to the fact of this. Typically, when they're going to civil commit somebody, and I'll get into that, they'll send guys from a different prison about a year or 9 months before they're ready to get released to Butner 1. I wasn't hip. I wasn't aware of this at the time. Had I, then I would have asked for his prior convictions as well, and therein lies the issue. As you guys may know, John Walsh, the former host of America's Most Wanted, had a child by the name of Adam that was abducted from a mall. Bad things happened to him sexually by a predator. And Walsh went on a crusade to lock everybody up, especially sex offenders. And he pushed for legislation called the Adam Walsh Act. The Adam Walsh Act, named after his son, in it, well, there's a lot of stuff, but in it, there's a provision of the bill that says that people who are deemed mentally ill, sexually dangerous, I think it was, can be held past their sentence. So let's say tomorrow I'm getting out of prison. But in the past or in the present, I have a bad sex case. They can hold me, civilly commit me, and hold me forever for the rest of my life. That's true stuff. To this day, it's true. So Butner had just opened up Maryland unit. Maryland unit became the new civil commitment unit. And slowly but surely, you would see guys that were supposed to be going home trickle up to Maryland, where they were being held past their sentence indefinitely. And indefinitely, I think, means they're supposed to see a psychiatrist every 3 months to determine if they're fit for society. Most of them never will be. Even if, I don't know how many's been let out. That's a whole different story. Okay, so me and Paul lived together, okay, so let's just say 8 months. Okay, that's about right, too. Good Celly. I mean, just a fantastic Celly. He was a #1 out at Unicor, construction industry job. Stayed gone, got me all the cool little shit that I needed. We had battery chargers in the cell. I mean, he was a good Celly. At night, around 10 o'clock, I used to listen to Dr. Drew and the Love Line. It was very entertaining for me. I kind of fancy myself as an armchair psychologist. And I got a lot of psychology magazines once upon a time. And so it was funny for me to listen to. And that was the radio stations out of LA. I got some ties to that radio station back in the day. So I used to like listening to it. Well, often on that radio show, people will call in that have been abused as a child. And Dr. Drew would like really say mean stuff about, you know, the abusers and stuff like that. And I would like cheer him on at times. And I would talk cash shit too. Man, that's so sick. They need to kill those people, blah, blah, blah. That's what I would say. One night, somebody called in, and it was I forgot what it was, but Paul would listen too as he was falling asleep. And I forgot what the issue was, but it was something that would make you go, oh man, that's so sick. Or laugh at what Dr. Drew said about sex offenders, whatever. Paul was silent. Right then and there, my radar went off. I'm like, oh my God, my gut feeling was right all along. This dude's one of those weirdos. The next day, I confronted him. I said, Paul, listen up. Are you one of those dudes? Are you one of these freaks that are going to go up to Maryland unit? Tell me now. And he said, no, he used to call me Robbie a lot or whatever. No, Robbie, I swear. Why would you say that? I go, you got your prior conviction? And he kind of hesitated, and he goes, yeah, I can get it. And I said, okay, let's get it. He goes, well, I don't know if I can get it. I got like 3 weeks left before he went home. Okay, so, you know, I talked to Carmine Persico about it, you know. He's like, who cares? I don't mean to say Carmen, he's just like he's leaving, who cares? Because I said, Carmen, that guy's a weirdo, he's one of those freaks. Well, over the next week, Paul started to hustle a lot, collect a lot of stuff, new shoes, new sweats, lots of soap, lots of stuff that usually guys who are getting ready to leave would give to other people when they left, not take with them. Again, I confronted Paul and he says, well, Rob, I don't have nowhere to go when I get out. I'm going to a halfway house. So I need to stock up all this stuff. Okay, all right. Well, the day he was set for release, a guard came around. Cool guard, I forgot the guy's name. And he said, where's your Celly? And I said, I think he's at work. He goes, man, tell him to get his stuff ready and head up there. It's like 10 o'clock. I'm like, he's going home. He's like, he ain't going home. I'm like, what? He's like, man, he's one of those people. And I was like, so right then and there, I got confirmation. So what I did was this. Paul always kept the locker and all stuff. I'm a guy that never kept the locker in my locker in the joint. Very rare would I ever put a lock in my locker. In case you don't know, that's perceived as a sign of weakness amongst some people, especially West Coast guys. So to like prove like, you know, I'm not scared, I leave my lock open a lot. Okay, so I'm eating, I got chips stuck on my teeth. So here's what's up. Paul came in, I said, shut the door, and I said, do me a favor and open your locker. He's like, what's up? I said, I wanted to get something. You offered me some coffee the other day or something. And he like looked at me, I said, just open it up. And he opened it up, and I said, step out of the fucking cell right now. And he looked at me, and I said, step out of the fucking cell right now. I did have a box cutter. If you guys saw the interview I did with Chucky the other day, I had a straight razor that was big, and Paul knew this. And he kind of freaked out. I got all his stuff, put it in a bag. And I said, beat it, you sick fuck. What did you do? What did you do? What was your case? I know what you were. And he's like, Rob, I swear I didn't do it. I didn't. What were you accused of? Sodomizing his kid. Sodomizing his 5-year-old boy. I think that's, yeah. And I said, get out of my sight. Kept all of his property. Won't let him have anything. And threw it in the trash can. And for the rest of the time I was there, every at evening chow or something, I'd see big tall Paul walk down the sidewalk with all the rest of the chomos, stuck in the civil commitment unit where he probably should be. Yeah. All right, there's my story. Have a good day.